The desert sun burned high above the plains, turning the sand white and the air heavy with heat. From miles away, nothing stirred but the wind and the buzz of cicadas. But near the crooked bend of the San Pedro River, a horse slowed, and the man riding it leaned forward, squinting through the glare. Caleb Rowan had been riding since dawn, searching for strayed cattle. His shirt was soaked with sweat, hat tilted low, revolver heavy on his hip. He was a man who had long since stopped expecting surprises, until that morning. Something moved near the waterline, a shape that didn't belong. At first, he thought it was driftwood. Then the shape turned, sunlight glinting off dark hair, and he realized it was a woman, lying half in the water, barely moving. Hell, he muttered, dismounting quick. He dropped beside her, boots splashing in the river. Her skin was sunburned, lips cracked, dress torn and stained with dust. Beads of turquoise hung from her neck, one broken strand tangled in her hair. "Hey," he said gently, shaking her shoulder. "You hear me?" No answer. Her chest moved, barely. He slid an arm beneath her and lifted her head. "Stay with me, ma'am." Her eyes fluttered open. They were amber, like the color of honey under sunlight, and filled with something between pain and pride. She whispered something, words he didn't understand, Apache words, and then went still again. Caleb looked around. The trail was empty, no one for miles. He sighed, ran a hand through his hair, and muttered, "Guess it's you and me, then." He carried her to his horse, wrapped her in his bedroll, and rode slow back to his ranch under the blistering sun. The Rowan ranch sat between two dry hills, a patch of land that had seen better days. The corral was half fallen, the barn empty, and the house little more than weathered boards and stubbornness. He laid her on his bed, fetched water, and started cleaning her wounds, shallow cuts along her arms and shoulder, a bruise on her temple. When he pressed the wet cloth to her lips, she stirred. "You're safe," he said softly. "Ain't gonna hurt you." Her eyes blinked open again, confused but alert this time. "Why, help?" she asked, voice weak but clear. He paused, then shrugged. "Wouldn't feel right leaving anybody to die in the dirt." She studied him, as if trying to see through his words. "You, not soldier." He shook his head. "Used to be, ain't anymore." She looked away, relief flickering across her face. "My name, Nelina." "Caleb," he said. "Caleb Rowan, .. By evening, she was sitting up, wrapped in one of his blankets. She ate little, just some beans and cornbread, but her color was coming back. "Where you from?" he asked quietly, sitting near the stove. She hesitated. "Far south. My people live near White Rock Ridge. Soldiers came, take us away. We run." Caleb nodded slowly. "You got family?" She lowered her gaze. He said nothing after that. The desert wind howled through the cracks in the window, carrying silence between them. Later, when she fell asleep, he stepped out to the porch and lit a cigarette. The stars were out, sharp and endless. He'd seen plenty of suffering in his life, soldiers, settlers, natives, all dying the same under the same sun. But something about that woman inside hit different. Maybe it was the way she hadn't begged for help. Maybe it was the look in her eyes, proud, even when broken. He exhaled smoke and muttered, "Don't make me regret this, girl." 3 days passed. Nelina regained her strength faster than he expected. By morning, she was up, helping fetch water from the well. When Caleb told her to rest, she simply said, "If I sit, I think too much." He couldn't argue with that. Sometimes, he caught her, watching him while he worked, mending the fence, feeding the horse, hauling hay. Her eyes held both caution and curiosity. Once, when he asked what she was staring at, she said, "You fight pain with silence. Like the coyote when he's trapped." He didn't know how to answer that. That afternoon, as he was saddling his horse, she walked out of the barn carrying a handful of broken arrows. "These were near river," she said. "Not old." Caleb frowned. "You mean there's others nearby?" She nodded. "Apache hunters. Maybe soldiers too." He cursed under his breath. "If they find out I've got you here, they will kill you," she finished flatly. "Appreciate the honesty," he said dryly. "You can send me away," she added, voice low. He looked at her, the cuts healing on her face, the steady way she held his gaze despite everything. "Ain't gonna do that," he said finally. "You're safe here." She tilted her head slightly. "You say that easy, but men lie." He smiled faintly. "You'll learn I'm not good at lying." That night, the sky turned red as the sun dipped behind the ridge. Caleb sat on the porch, whittling wood, while Nalina braided a rope from dry grass. After a while, she said softly, "Why you leave army?" He stopped carving. The knife froze in his hand. "Got tired of killin'," he said after a long pause. "Didn't matter who was right. Every time I pulled that trigger, it felt like something inside me died too." She nodded slowly, as if she understood too well. "Same feeling when you lose your home. Part of you gone forever." He looked at her, the firelight reflecting in her amber eyes. "You've seen plenty, haven't you?" "Too much," she whispered. "But I still live." He smiled, a faint flicker of warmth after years of cold. "That's something worth fighting for." 2 days later, the trouble came. At dawn, Caleb woke to the sound of hoofbeats, 3 riders cresting the hill, soldiers by their look. He cursed and grabbed his rifle. Nalina froze. "They come for me." "Stay inside," he said. He stepped out, rifle in hand. The soldiers stopped at the gate, dust swirling around them. "Morning," Caleb said flatly. The lead man, a sergeant, spat. "Morning. You seen any Apaches passing through?" "We got orders to round up a few runaways." Caleb's face didn't move. "Ain't seen nobody but cattle and my own shadow." The sergeant's eyes narrowed. "Mind if we take a look around?" "I do mind," Caleb said. "Ain't nothing here but work and dust." The man smirked. "You always were stubborn, Rowan. Heard you quit the army 'cause you couldn't stomach the job." Caleb said nothing. "Well," the man continued, "if we find you hidin', an Apache, that's treason. You know what they do to traitors, don't you?" Caleb's voice was calm, low, dangerous. "You better find proof first." The soldier stared him down for a long moment, then finally said, "We'll be back." They turned and rode off, the sound of their horses fading into the wind. Caleb stood there until the dust settled, jaw tight. When he turned back to the porch, Nalina was standing there, pale but steady. "You risked your life," she said quietly. He shrugged. "Wouldn't be the first time." She stepped closer, her voice trembling now. "Why, you owe me nothing." He looked at her, really looked, and said, "Maybe not. But sometimes helping someone is the only way a man remembers he's still human." For the first time, she smiled, small, soft, and real. That evening, the world felt lighter somehow. They ate together by lamplight, and when the wind rattled the windows, she didn't flinch anymore. After dinner, she said, "You think I bring you trouble?" He chuckled. "You are trouble." She laughed, and the sound filled the cabin like music. But when the laughter faded, she looked at him seriously. "Then I must give you something in return." He frowned. "Don't need nothin'." She shook her head. "You gave me life. I give you spirit." He didn't understand what she meant until she took his hand and pressed something into it, a small, carved stone shaped like a hawk. "My father made this," she said. "He say it protect from death if the heart is pure." Caleb turned it over in his palm, the carving smooth and worn. "I can't take this." "You must," she said softly. "Because I feel, you need it more than I." Their eyes met, and for a moment, the world outside vanished. Just the warmth of the fire, her hand still over his, and a feeling he hadn't known in years, peace. That night, as he lay awake staring at the ceiling, he realized something dangerous. He didn't just want to protect her anymore. He needed her, not because she was fragile, she wasn't, but because she reminded him what it meant to feel alive again. And deep down, he knew this wasn't the end of their story. It was only the beginning. The morning sun stretched over the desert hills, turning every grain of sand into gold. Caleb Rowan stood by the fence, tightening a loose wire while his thoughts wandered toward the woman inside his cabin. It had been 3 days since the soldiers came, and though the dust had settled, his mind hadn't. He'd seen war, seen death, but never felt fear like this, fear of losing someone who had started to mean everything. He heard her humming inside, soft, rhythmic, in a language older than the wind. The melody flowed through the open window, wrapping around him like a prayer. He smiled, the kind that crept in without permission. When she stepped out, dressed in one of his shirts tied with a strip of leather, her hair shining in the sunlight, he nearly forgot to breathe. "You fixed the fence," she said, her accent curling around every word. "Had to," he said. "Cattle'll run off if I don't." She walked closer, the sun glinting off the turquoise beads around her neck. "You work alone too much. The land listens better when 2 voices speak." He chuckled softly. "That right?" She nodded, serious. "The earth likes company. Like people. Something stirred in his chest then, something warm, almost painful. Guess I've been alone too long. Dash dash dash. As the day passed, she helped him with the horses, surprising him with how gentle she was. When one colt jerked away in fear, she placed her hand on its muzzle and whispered something. Within seconds, the animal calmed. Caleb watched in quiet awe. You do magic, she laughed softly. No, just heart speak. Heart speak. She pressed her hand to her chest. If your spirit is calm, even wild things listen. He looked at her, the way the sunlight caught the curve of her cheek, the calm in her eyes, and realized he was the wild one being tamed. Dash dash dash. That afternoon, while fixing the barn roof, he noticed smoke rising from the west ridge. Not from a campfire, bigger. Blacker. He froze, then shouted down, Nelina. Inside, now. She ran toward him, eyes wide. Soldiers. He grabbed his rifle and scanned the horizon. Don't know yet, but that smoke ain't friendly. They moved fast. He packed a saddlebag with water, ammo, and food. She tied her blanket around her shoulders. If they find us, he said, we ride south. You hear, I hear, she said firmly. But if they come for me, you must not. He cut her off, jaw tight. Ain't leavin' you. Before she could argue, the wind carried a sound that froze them both, horses. At least half a dozen. Getting closer. Dash dash dash. Minutes later, 6 riders appeared, soldiers, and one man not in uniform, a trader Caleb recognized, a lowlife who sold horses and rumors. The trader pointed toward the cabin. That's him, Sergeant, told you he's hidin', one of them savages. Nelina's breath caught. Caleb pushed her behind the doorway. Stay down. The soldiers stopped at the gate again. The sergeant from before sneered. Told you we'd be back, Rowan. Step aside. Caleb stepped forward instead. Ain't nothing here for you. The man smirked. Then you won't mind if we check, will you? When he tried to move past, Caleb's rifle blocked his chest. Mind if I say no again? The sergeant's grin faded. You really wanna die for an Apache? Caleb's voice was steady. I ain't dyin' for her. I'm livin' because of her. The sergeant's hand twitched toward his pistol, and before anyone could blink, the world exploded in gunfire. Dash dash dash. The first shot tore through the air, splintering the porch rail. Nelina screamed, diving to the floor. Caleb fired back, hitting one soldier's arm, another's leg. The rest scattered, ducking behind their horses. Bullets whined past his head. He reloaded fast, cursing under his breath. Nelina, he shouted. Back door. The horses. But when he turned, she wasn't running. She was kneeling by the wall, clutching something in her hand, a small clay pouch. She whispered words in her native tongue and threw it toward the soldiers. Smoke burst out, thick and red, swirling like desert dust. The soldiers coughed, blinded. Caleb fired twice more, forcing them back down the hill. The traitor screamed and bolted, falling off his horse. When the last shot echoed away, silence fell heavy. The only sound was the wind. Dash dash dash. Caleb turned, chest heaving. What the hell was that? She held up the empty pouch, panting. Dust of the Red Hawk. My father taught me, makes men see their own fear. He laughed, half shocked, half amazed. Remind me never to make you mad. She smiled faintly, then her expression softened. You could have died. He looked at her, sweat and dust mixing on his face. Would have been worth it. She stared at him like she wanted to speak but couldn't. Then she just stepped forward and pressed her hand to his chest, over his heart. You fight for me like I am yours. Maybe you are, he said quietly. The words hung between them, raw, dangerous, real. Dash dash dash. They left that night. The ranch was no longer safe. Caleb packed what little he owned and rode south with Nelina behind him, her arms around his waist, moonlight guiding their path. By dawn, they reached the canyon where her people once lived, but it was empty now, burned, silent. She dismounted slowly, kneeling by the ashes. This was home. Caleb knelt beside her, placing a hand on her shoulder. I'm sorry. She shook her head. The land remembers us. It's never truly gone. He looked at her, her strength, her sadness, and something inside him broke open. You don't have to face this alone anymore. She turned toward him, eyes shimmering. Then who am I if not alone? You're Nelina, he said softly. And you're with me. Dash dash dash. They stayed in that canyon for 2 days, building a small camp near the river. Caleb hunted. She taught him to track by wind and shadow. In return, he showed her how to saddle a horse, how to shoot straight. At sunset, They sat by the fire, watching the sky burn orange and gold. You still carry pain, she said. It sits in your eyes. He smiled faintly. You see too much. It's my curse, she whispered. And my gift. She leaned in closer, her voice trembling now. When I was taken, I thought all men cruel. But you gave without asking. You saw me when I was nothing. He swallowed hard. You were never nothing. Then, as the wind moved through the canyon, she reached out and touched his face, gentle, uncertain, and for the first time in years, he didn't pull away. The kiss came quiet, like the settling of dust after a storm, soft, searching, full of everything they'd both lost and finally found again. When they pulled apart, she smiled through tears. Now you understand what I give in return. He did. It wasn't gold, or favor, or even safety. It was trust. It was love, born from pain, sealed in sunlight. By the time dawn came again, they were gone from the canyon, riding west toward land where no army ruled, where a man and woman could start over without fear. As they disappeared into the rising sun, the hawk charm around Caleb's neck caught the light, glowing bright as fire. The desert whispered after them, not of war, not of loss, but of a love strong enough to outlive the dust itself.